All right, good evening. This is the Rutland Town Planning Commission. It's Thursday, November 17th of 2022. We'll begin our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge of Allegiance
to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, call the meeting to order. And the first item is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Motion to approve the, motion to accept the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Oh, looks like Norman is.
Yep.
Is there. Hi, Norm. Almost there.
Yep.
Don't see any public. So we'll skip over that and go down to new business and the Pocket Park. Mary Ashcroft and I had a meeting with a lot of GMP people and some of their consultants who are doing their FERC relicensing. We had that meeting this week. Norm, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry for the screw up.
So a very productive meeting. I think we took some more steps forward with the Pocket Park. GMP and its consultants are working out the final issues with the FERC relicense. GMP is fully on board, regardless of what comes out of the FERC license, fully on board with going ahead and working with the town, figuring out some way to transfer the land and to get a park put in there, whether it's done all at once or done through phases. So all those parties be working on an MOU first, nothing real legal, but just something to have and to know where all the parties stand. So that will be about the parcel. GMP offered to do an assessment of archaeological resources there, because that's something the state will most likely will require before we go much further with this. So that's a good development too. They will take charge of that and make sure it gets done. And it sounds like from what Mary says is that we're looking at doing the park through different phases and using a lot of volunteers. So I think she or the select board will be asking us sometime shortly to start rounding up some people. To do what, we're not quite sure yet. What's going to go in first at the park. I still suggest that we perhaps could benefit from a professional engineering proposal, even if it was in phases. So we'll see what the select board decides with that. So kind of good.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
When was the meeting, by the way?
When?
When?
Wednesday
Oh,
afternoon.
yesterday?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Any questions on that? Before we move on. Okay, let's go down to old business. The permit tracking ordinance is back on track, some track. The select board took it up at their last meeting, or I asked them if they would review it. I told them that we had agreed to remove the questionnaire, which the town attorney took exception to. He thought it was too much like zoning. So Mary had some suggestions. They weren't prepared to take any action at that meeting, but it's on the agenda to take action. And actually, the agenda item says approve the permit.
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll come up Tuesday night again. And,
On a big agenda for Tuesday, so hopefully they get some of the things we put off, so.
okay. That would be nice. And Bill, you've still been tweaking away at the permit form.
This is a good, I made a few changes to it, so this is what I'm going with.
Okay. And they'll have that as well,
They do have that, yes. They had it all at the last meeting, so yeah, they still have it.
even with your latest changes.
So the only question, Bill, that I have is really on the permit form checklist.
Third page.
Yeah, the third page. And you start out with saying fire alarm permit, flood hazard permit, but then none of the others have permits. Are they not permits?
So they're all permits.
Okay,
So when you, the actual purpose in the definition of the permit tracking ordinance is to make sure that people are getting the necessary permits for their projects.
Right.
So that's why I said, okay, well, we don't actually go out and say, here's all the ones we have. So I literally went through the ordinances and says, this is everything that we could possibly ask somebody for. So that way they can't say, oh, I didn't know this existed. There it is.
right. Whether they need it or not is another question.
Right, that's what it says, like, if it's required, it must be
Yep.
included, so,
No, it's just that the first two are listed as permits, the rest are not.
Yep.
So I didn't know for consistency purpose, whether you either wanted to take out permit on the first two or add permit to all of the others.
yeah, I can.
It's like I said, it's not a big deal. It just was one of those things that I noticed. And so I thought I'd ask as to whether they were permits or not.
Probably a whole lot easier just to take the two
Oh,
top ones.
yeah. Because if they're all permits, then it doesn't matter. But it seemed to imply that the first two were permits and the others were something else.
Okay.
But
Yep.
other than that,
Okay,
I thought it looked good.
okay. We'll see what transpires on Tuesday.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Barbara?
great. Thank you, Bill.
Update on the, and,
Excuse me, Barbara, I have a
oh,
question.
sorry,
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention.
You just said something that puzzled me. Something about removing a questionnaire. The select board wanted us to do that.
It's something we acted on our last meeting. The town attorney advised us that it probably doesn't belong in a place like Rutland Town because we don't have zoning. The questionnaire was asked two specific questions of people. So we voted on that the last meeting,
Okay, I didn't.
that I would go,
It's in the minutes.
that I
Amen.
would go
I
to the
made the
select
motion.
board
Yeah.
and tell them it was not part of the package anymore.
Okay. For some reason it slipped my mind. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? So energy survey, it's still out there. We've got 49 responses and some interesting comments there and some guidance on what townspeople might like to see more of from town officials. So we'll keep it going. I might ask the select board to maybe keep it going into December. We've got the next circle will come out, well, around the holidays. So maybe even to the first of the year or something. Just, I did take the suggestion and get it into the school newsletter. Although, the QR code didn't come out. In the first time she put the blurb in, she's going to redo it. And we'll see if we get any response from that. So continue to talk it up out there. the river corridor flood hazard regulations that we've talked about, and I took to the select board and I said, okay, by a 3-2 vote, they said, okay, go ahead, proceed with putting something together, but definitely include some landowner meetings right at the outset. So we'll do that, and we'll work with the state floodplain manager for this part of the state, Kyle Midash. He is super busy right now, so I think maybe after the first of the year, we might be able to get him in to acquaint everybody here with what the state is looking for river corridor protections. Our flood hazard, our special flood hazard area regulations haven't been touched since 2008. So we could do both of those things at the same time. And that's the river corridor map up there with those pink and purple sections. Those are the river corridors, but there's also floodways there and special flood hazard areas. So we're thinking of meeting with Kyle and maybe doing meetings with landowners on site, maybe pick like 3 sites out there and actually show them, you know, this is where the river corridor would be. And this is why we don't think you should put any structures here or anything like that, or a junkyard. So, and I put that link in here in the minutes. I've done it for a couple meetings now. That just goes to a general information webpage that the state does. And so, if the town adopts river corridor protections, it will get more back from the state. It won't have to pay as much for federal disasters.
We'll be,
Its
we'll be
share will
eligible
go-
for a greater percentage of
The
reimbursements.
town share will go down and the state will pick up more of the tab. So that's appealing to some people. When you look at that map more closely, it does include some small streams too, but I don't think there's much going on where those small streams are. So even the faint pink lines would be included in these new regulations. But there's a lot of streams in Rutland town.
It's more of an awareness, educational.
Yeah. And you know, it could also be looked
approaches.
at as a companion piece to the Moon Brook
Right.
regulations that we have.
The stormwater, yeah.
So, I mean, I think when we had one of our public meetings, when we were putting those into place, someone said, why aren't you doing this town-wide? You know, so why just pick on Moon Brook? And
There are more stringent regulations around Moon Brook than would be around this particular ordinance. Is that
yeah,
correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think
I mean-
so. Although this, what the state is looking for, you know, they've got the carrot and stick approach.
Yep.
You know, the carrot is you'll pay less when there's a federal disaster. The stick is, you know, we want you to do this, and this. So, I mean, if you're ready, I can send you what they recently came out with some standalone regulations just this summer for towns that don't have zoning. And we can start looking it over, or we can wait.
I just as soon see it now. So when Kyle comes back, I would have enough time to digest it and ask my questions.
Okay,
That way, if I've got questions, I can send them to you, Barbara, and you can pass them on to Kyle. We can send them directly to Kyle so that he would have a focus for what we might be requesting in terms of presenting it
Mhm.
to the public. I
mhm,
mean, the public will have their own questions, but if we start generating a list, I think that we will be able to make progress a little more quickly, but
yeah,
that's just my perspective on it.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
Anybody else have any thoughts? I don't want to be the one making the comments about what we should or shouldn't be doing with respect to
Well, I mean, it's still preliminary.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're not making any decisions
No,
anyway,
right.
other than like, how much information do you want right now?
Right. But if other people don't, then don't clutter up their inbox, just send it to me.
I'll take it.
Oh, is that what that is?
We get like the front door.
I would like it as well.
Yes. I can do that. Lights, but everything else.
Stuff recorded.
Okay, good luck. Wondering what that was. Okay, let's move.
Thing on Route 7 North. I dropped the kids off at play practice and I could see lights and stuff. So
They were stopping trucks on Route 7 North Main Street.
yeah.
And I don't know what that was. Okay, let's move down to rules of procedure and the work that's been that a couple of our members have been diligently doing on that. These need to be readopted each year,
Yes.
and they're the ones that tell us how we're supposed to do.
When do they need, I mean, when would that be? Is that tonight or are we?
It has to be prior to the end of this, the calendar year, I believe.
It just says annually.
Actually, yeah,
It just says, that, you know,
This seems like it would be good. It makes sense to me. I don't know that we can do this. Be nice to do that when we elect the chair, vice chair, have all that business in one meeting kind of thing, but maybe we can't wait that. long.
yeah. The rules may be amended by a majority, this is how it reads right now, may be amended by a majority vote of the body and shall be readopted annually. So we last did it in October, but if we waited until our first meeting in January, the 5th or whatever. we're probably-
Just an
we're probably-
idea. I don't know that that makes sense, but
I just checked with Bill. Bill was the one who was thinking that you have an annual adoption date and then you try to keep it within that
Gotcha.
that timeframe. But my perspective when I was speaking to Bill was that I thought that it meant any time within that operating year. Ideally, you want to have it happening closer to the beginning of the year rather than, later in the
Yeah,
year.
it doesn't say fiscal year or calendar
Doesn't, it
year.
doesn't,
or-
right.
it might be if we started with January 5th and then made it the first meeting every year, it would be.
Right.
Maybe would be easy thing to have on the agenda every
The
time.
only thing is that Bill should get us the information about a month or two before, just like he did this time.
Right.
So if there are any changes, we will have the appropriate amount of time.
That'd
to
be the
review.
next meeting. That'd be December 8th because then our next meeting's in January, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
we would have to have them in with enough lead time to review things. So,
We don't have that much to go through.
no, not tonight.
do
I think it's fairly simple.
we? Okay, so since you and Dana, since you and Norm have been working on
Yep.
this, I'll give you the floor.
Okay. Norman, you want me to go or would you like to guide us?
I'd like to wait to the next meeting to make that decision. No, go ahead now.
All right. Thanks, Norman.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. Appreciate your humor. Okay, so the first recommendation is that under organization, paragraph C or section C, Norman and I are proposing in yellow another item, line item, call it 0 and renumber. The planning commission shall be composed of 7 regular members and 2 alternates because it doesn't say anywhere what the composition of the
Oh,
planning commission is. So state statute says it can be anywhere from 3 to 9 voting members. And I thought that it would be, and Norman agreed, that we should at least state our organizational purpose and how many people are fulfilling that role. So if there are no objections to that, then we'll include that.
Sound good to everyone?
I'll just check things off as I go down the list, but okay, thanks, Barbara. The second thing, once again, section C, subparagraph 3, a majority of the voting members. We highlighted that in yellow. It was just saying, members, and we want to make a distinction because we have 7 regular members or voting members and 2 alternates. So those would be the voting members.
So for that one, I think we should define voting or stick with either regular or alternate. Just to make it,
Mm-hmm. I would agree,
Okay,
because it
don't-
comes into play again, down below.
Wait a minute.
because if we,
yeah, go ahead, Norman.
Um, if we have regular or alternate there, I think it confuses the situation. By voting, we're assuming that those are the voting members. And they are maybe comprised of alternates, maybe comprised of regular members, but I don't see the benefit of, and certainly, Mary Beth, if you haven't, please let me know if, you know, where we disagree. It seems to me voting encompasses both of that because
Actually, Norman, this was an area that I think you and I talked about for about 10 or 15 minutes. Because we do have regular members and alternates, but when you, it's a majority of voting members constitutes a quorum. So in other words, if we have 7 regular members, a quorum is comprised of 4 voting members, whether those are made up. I think you're right, Norman, whether those are made up of regular members or alternate members because regular members are absent. So I think your point was the same point that you helped me to realize when we were having that conversation.
so wouldn't it just be all members then?
No, because all members are 9 and our body is not made up of 9 voting members.
Couldn't you say a majority of the voting regular members or alternate members?
You
so
could
it
say that.
Does what Mary. does?
Yeah, I think that would make it more clear.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So regular, majority of the voting members, regular or alternate, in parentheses.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Just to clear, yeah.
Norman, you good with that?
yeah, that's fine.
All right.
After the words voting members, parenthesis, regular or alternate.
Mm.
That's what Jerry's suggesting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, great. The next recommendation is
I'm sorry, it's in 3 where it's crossed out. Where
that's where I'm going next.
oh, okay. Sorry.
The next recommendation that we're making is to remove the wording that follows quorum in the next line, next sentence. If a quorum is not present at a meeting, no meeting shall take place.
Mm-hmm.
Because the rest is redundant. A quorum has its own definition of being a majority of the voting members of the.
Right, we just defined it.
We just defined it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
So that will just come out. That was Norman's suggestion. Thanks, Norm, for that. The next
Thank you.
area. So any objection to those 2 changes on subparagraph 3?
Mm-mm.
Okay, great. Howard, you good?
I'm good with it. Yep.
Okay, next one is in subparagraph 5. A couple of,
Let me just
yes, Norman.
interject something here. Sorry to interrupt. Throughout this, and just hopefully to just save time as we go through, there are many times we use the word shall and use it to replace another word, whether it's may or will or whatever. One was for consistency's sake. And secondly, if the word shall has a very specific legal meaning upheld by the Vermont Supreme Court over the years, where it means shall is obligatory, may is discretionary. And people tend to interchange them. But I think in a document like procedure, like these rules of procedure, Dana and I worked on trying to make the word shall consistent all the way through. So I just offer that so you know why, when you see it 15 times, why we did it, and we won't lose time. Thank you for letting me speak, Dana.
My pleasure. So the first thing is to replace whatever word was there. I can't remember if it was may or will or whatever. It's shall in the first line. Members of the body shall require a second. So any motions. The second change in yellow is in the second line, second sentence. A motion will pass only if it receives the votes of a majority of the totaling voting members in attendance. So the only was in a different place. Norman felt that it was clearer if it were placed there. So it wasn't splitting the infinitive. Anyway, so that's the only change there. And total voting members in attendance, so that a motion requires a majority of those voting members present. So for example, if there are only 5 members in attendance, a majority would be 3.
Yes, your math is correct. But statute says that for any business, any action taken by an organization like ours, it's the quorum. It's a quorum. It's for everything we do.
Makes sense.
1 VSA 172.
So does that mean, like, say you only have 5 people, 4 would need to vote in favor for it to pass?
Right,
That's without any abstentions,
right.
because you have to have a quorum voting in the affirmative.
Yeah.
You have to have 4 approvals no matter what,
That's never been clear.
or 4,
So this is what
yes.
statute, and Alan Biederman, when he was here, he gave me a court opinion that validated or clarified the statute. So it's backed up by several different things. So it says, a quorum is necessary to take action where legal authority is given to a public body, a board, committee, or commission. That authority may only be exercised by a quorum of that public body. And that's essentially the essence. This language means that a majority of total members in this case, they're referring to a select board, must agree before the select board may take an action or make a decision.
So there are 2 uses of the word quorum, and I don't think that that's been clarified, because one is you have a quorum as long as you have 4 voting members present at a meeting. Now, the term quorum is often used, and maybe it's used inappropriately, but to represent a majority of the public body in attendance. That would mean a quorum of those present, a quorum. If you've got a subcommittee and that subcommittee is composed of 3 members, then 2 voting in the affirmative for action on that subcommittee constitutes legitimacy for passing that particular recommendation.
But this is why we have the first line of number 3, the one we just looked at. The majority of the voting members, regular or alternate, of the body shall constitute a quorum. So it always goes back to the majority of the group. And it's actually pretty simple to keep track of. I mean, you have one number that you have to hit every time for every decision.
But what does happen in a subcommittee then? If there's 3 members of a subcommittee,
Because that's not a quorum of the,
it's not a quorum of.
well, actually, in order to have my understanding is that in order to have a subcommittee can have any number that the board appoints, but a quorum is more than 50% of those present acting in the affirmative.
Also, a subcommittee doesn't take action.
Right,
It
so
it
then-
just makes recommendations.
So then that's separate from this particular item that I got you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Suggestion.
Just a minute, Norm.
What if, so for number 3, and what if can we just say, because we know how many people we have, can we just say 4 members shall constitute a quorum and 4 votes
In the affirmative.
in the affirmative is required
I think that would clarify because
Mhm.
on its face, I don't believe that that's consistent and that's generally applicable. But I mean, I'll look at look at one VSA 172 because I know what a quorum means.
Maybe for those particular items, we ought to circle back to that and get a chance to look at that. I mean, we aren't going to be able to solve it tonight.
No, we aren't. I have never, in all of my time working with boards, my understanding has been that a majority of those, a quorum is, over 50% of the, members of the body in attendance.
Yeah.
And that the action of that body is a majority of those present.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, these are public bodies that this.
Yeah, and I'm talking
This
about
is
school
writ-
boards because
there's-
I've been involved with school boards for 30 years. So, I mean, that could be a misunderstanding that I've had for that entire time. But when you have boards of 11 to 13 members, and you have a quorum of 7, say, in attendance, no, that's 7. Everybody would have to vote in the affirmative. And I know historically that has not happened. That there have been times when you've had a 5-3 vote. But once there's a quorum of members present, the will of that majority has, at least in my experience, been carried by the number of people voting in the affirmative. It either goes up or goes down based on the majority of those present who are voting members.
Yeah, I know there's some misunderstanding or some people are not aware.
Yeah,
of
that's
the
So right
statute.
now, tonight, if we were to have that, we would, say if Norman, just to make the numbers easy, if Norman had not got into the meeting, there would have been 5 of us. You're saying there should be 4. That's how statute reads.
it would have to be 4. Any vote would have to be 4-1.
4
The
to 1. And you're
votes.
saying that you usually thought it was in the.
It was 3.
1 over 50%.
Right.
Or over 50%.
Whatever, over 50% would carry the,
And,
to see
you know,
where it
and,
goes.
and I'm looking at what our select board does too. And it's 3 votes for everything. It doesn't pass unless it gets 3 votes of the 5 members.
Even if one of them's not there, well,
even if 2 are
No.
not there.
2 are not there.
If
That's
they're not there, they don't vote.
right.
If they,
But it wouldn't
if-
be a 2 to 1 that would pass something. It would still have to be
right,
3 to.
at least 3. Yeah. Hey, Norm, you've been waiting.
That's I think whatever we do, we ought to define at some point, maybe second 0, Dana, as stated herein, the term quorum means, and get a definition so that it on record.
Well, we also need to explain that at a meeting, in order to pass any motion, that it must carry 4 votes regardless of the number of voting members present. If that's truly in fact what we're expecting.
If that's the case.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a set of special rules for public bodies so that a minority doesn't pass something. I mean, I think that's the logic behind this. It always has to be this majority if you're going to tell people pass something that it's going to affect a community.
I think
or
we can,
whatever.
or I understand the situation. Dana, we can work on how to articulate the definition of quorum. So we don't have to spell it out all the way through. We can just put, so I don't think we should waste any more time on it.
That sounds good. We'll take that back. So anyway, number 5, we can get at least agreement on whatever is here. Members of the body shall require a second. That everybody agree with that only. And what we're going to look at is total voting members in attendance, right? Because
Yeah,
as opposed to, is it a total of 7 voting members? Right? Because that's what you're saying,
the quorum is based on 7.
always,
Mm-hmm,
in order to pass motions.
mm-hmm.
Even if there's only 5 present. Well, that's just me talking.
Right.
Not about.
Yep.
Even if there are only 4
present.
present, right,
Right, even
Yep.
if there's only 4.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
So for example, we
Interesting.
had that on the 6th when Howard yourself, me, and Norman were present. In other words, if we didn't vote unanimously for something,
Right.
that motion would not have passed.
Gotcha.
Right. That takes us actually to the sticky part on the minutes. And I put the note in there, it's in blue. We need to discuss the approval of minutes. Perhaps this can be done by consent rather than a formal motion and action. In researching both through the Vermont League Cities and Towns and the Secretary of State's website, there is no formal requirement about how minutes are finalized. The only requirement statutorily is that they be posted within 5 days as drafts. In researching a number of public bodies, what they do is they put the minutes on a consent agenda, which does not require a motion and does not require a second or a vote. It's on the consent agenda. In fact, the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns say that the requirement is so that that members of that public body will read the minutes and be informed about the minutes, and then they can be accepted by consent. In other words, the approval process would be a lot easier once they are presented at the following meeting with everybody having an opportunity to review those minutes, and then they would just pass and go to Bill and to Kerry for final copy. And in fact, the way that we could handle that is if there were any typos and things like that, which we often spend time debating, if those would just be given to Bill first, he could correct them. And then they would be placed in the packet as the final version, and we could accept those under a consent agenda. If someone objected, they would ask to remove those from the consent agenda, and that only requires a single objection, and then those would have to be voted on specifically. But it would allow us to pass minutes without having the same onerous requirement that we were just talking about with respect to other motions regarding business. So in other words, we have a complex situation that presented itself when only 4 of us were present, constituting a quorum for the meeting. But if those 4 members were not present at the next meeting, we could not effectively motion to approve, second, and pass those minutes until the 4 members who were present at that meeting were then present at a subsequent meeting. And then the question comes in, well, Norman was an alternate, but if we had 7 regular members, Norman would not be a voting member, and therefore we would still only have 3 voting members present from the first meeting to be able to approve the minutes based on the normal rules of procedure, which would mean it would take until we had a situation where we had all 4 of us present and at least 1 member from the normal voting membership absent, so Norman could then vote again and we could pass those minutes. That seems like an awfully onerous burden to have to place on accepting minutes.
Ew, that was something else. Holy.
But, okay, so it happened once that there were only 4 members here. Usually the minutes are like, no problem. It's unanimous and everyone, there's enough people here that were at that meeting to comment on them and to vote on them. So I think that was a rare exception, the October 6th meeting or whenever it was. Norm, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Dana and I have gone back and forth on this, and I tell you what I do like is putting it on the consent agenda, because 95% of the stuff we do is typos, and we don't need to take up our time at the meeting running through them, and then somebody picks up some that A missed and then B missed, and just send them in the bill, get it done, and have a little, if there's anything left for discussion, try to get it done beforehand, and we won't be taking up as much time with minutes. So Barbara's right. I mean, I thought about that too. It's a rare situation, but it's the rare situations that cause the problems, that the stuff that falls through the cracks. So I kind of like the idea of putting on the consent agenda and dealing with the typos in between, just in terms of keeping our meeting less cumbersome.
Can someone send me the, what you cited from Vermont League of Cities and Towns?
I'll do it. I think I sent you part of it already, but I'll look for the rest. Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that first.
Let me just say one of the.
I can't be sure whether it was Vermont League of Cities and Towns or whether it was on the Secretary of State's website. It was one of the two. I've looked at so many different things, but I'll send it to you.
I know, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, the select board is tables minutes, almost every meeting, because people who are listed as being at a meeting that they're trying to approve the minutes of are not in attendance. So they just wait to the next meeting and hopefully everyone's there.
But my point
this
is, in doing the research, is that that's not a requirement by
Yeah, I get that.
by state statute.
Yeah.
So if it can be done by consent, it seems like that would be a simpler way to get the minutes moved along. That would address Bill's need to get them finalized and over to Kerry, so that if somebody asks for a final version of the minutes, that they would be available sooner rather than later.
So you're asking people before our meetings.
Submit any corrections. I've done this to Bill, for Bill. I mean, Bill, there's a typo. You forgot to put an apostrophe on line 3, or I think 2 is supposed to be TWO is supposed to TOO, or I don't know what it is. I mean, those are incidental things that we don't need to be taking up time with.
So
planning
if you
commission.
do those things and it goes to Bill, that's the final version. We're not going to discuss it again.
That's right. They would just be in the
No.
packet with as the final version.
I'm good with that if that stands true. But if they come and they circle around and now we're talking about an A or an AN, what a waste of our time again.
Right.
So I'd rather do it once. If we're going to do it once, we better do it once. So it's just going to be a bunch of circle things that don't need to happen. I mean,
Right.
it's just,
And in fact, one of the other things that I did read, and I've got all kinds of tabs still open on my computer at home, which my wife was, it's driving her crazy, but until it gets resolved, I want to make sure that I don't lose track of what I've been doing. One of the things is that it's supposed to be actions that are taken by the body, not what every person said. And so it's supposed to be a drill down overview, a summary of what has taken place. Technically, all we need are the motions that went along with any section. Bill is great in capturing a little bit of the discussion because it helps us to remember what took place.
And someone who wasn't there.
Right, can read them and understand what happened. And I think that that's the spirit, but it is not a legal record of every word that a person said. That's not the requirement statutorily. So
It is a legal record and historical record, though.
It's not a transcript.
it's not a transcript, and there's no legal requirement that it be a transcript.
No, but it's the only thing we have to show ourselves and the public of how we made decisions.
Right.
Hey, Norm, your hand was up. Now it's down.
Well, yeah, it got tired. Jerry, I don't remember. I couldn't hear everything you said, but if I understood it, I'm not. Well, if I understood what you said, I'm not sure I follow it.
I'm going to tell you
If
again.
there's something, if we send our corrections, typos in to Bill beforehand, and it comes to the meeting and it's on the consent agenda, and somebody has an issue with the substance of the minutes, that they just vote no, and then we talk about it.
Well, first of all, I didn't say about the content. I said
Right.
about typos.
Typos, yeah.
And secondly, I'm even going to take it a step further about the content. Why don't we do it once like we always have? Why are we going to essentially do it twice? So you're asking me to sit down go over it, send typos and content or things to Bill. Bill's gonna redo it, then we're gonna talk about it anyway?
No, we're
Let's
not.
Talk about it once.
We would not be talking about it.
Well, I thought that's what Norm's just saying, though. If there was somebody wanted to talk about a section, then we're gonna talk about it again. Why don't we do it one time? I guess I don't understand.
So I think what Norman is, Norman, if I don't capture what you were representing accurately, please correct me. But I think what he was saying was that if it's not dealing with language or typos, or that doesn't change the substance of what had transpired, then it's just going to sail right through. There's not. But if somebody who was present at the meeting said, I don't remember it this way. I don't remember that we took this particular action. Then they could have a discussion about whether that action took place. And if they're satisfied afterwards, then it would go through
So,
as a normal vote.
so I'm all for being
Efficient.
able to discuss it. I get it. And not just say, that's it, you had your chance, you're done. I'm not saying that necessarily, but I'm saying, why are we going to change a process to do something that we do once and then it moves forward? I guess I don't understand that part. I mean, it just seems like unless Bill, it makes his job easier. If it does, I'm for that. But if it doesn't really, I guess I don't understand why we change what we've done all along. I don't see the benefit, I guess.
Well, one of the things is that right now, we have minutes from October 6th that aren't going to be approved. Well, hopefully they'll be approved tonight because the 4 members who were present on October 6th are present tonight and can vote on them without.
Yeah,
any
we can
extensions.
vote on them.
But what it will do is it will allow Bill at the meeting right following the previous meeting to get those finalized and off to Kerry. So the greatest amount of time in between would be 3 weeks. Well, actually 2, because you post them within 5 days.
Yeah, the draft is posted. That's what we have to, so we have to start with, and then the final, the signed ones have to go on file in the clerk's office. So.
Right.
So that's where they end up in there. So. The process we do with you is similar to the select board, is that you get them ahead of time. Presumably they review them. I mean, I'm assuming you do too. And then, at the meeting, if there's any changes, they make changes, they vote them when they're done. Like the board process for approved minutes generally is about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's they don't really make changes to it. Somebody makes a motion, seconds it, they pass it, done. Like it's just.
And they do everything at the meeting.
Yeah, they do it all. They do it all.
No
at the meeting,
pre-work. Yeah.
and fortunately, I mean, most of them, of the 5, they typically are all there. So it's very rare that we have, we can't approve a set of minutes. It's only happened like once, I think, in the past 6 or 8 months that we've had to put off one meeting. And so, it's not really that bad of a process. It helps. I think the biggest thing is having them read before you come to the meeting and not trying to read them during that time saying, oh, here's corrections. Like if you're ready to go, make the changes, read them ahead of time.
That's the whole idea behind the consent agenda.
Exactly, yeah.
That it is information to the members of the body who may or may not have been present. And for those who were present to validate that they were, that's an accurate representation. It's not supposed to be a laborious process.
So then there wouldn't be then, am I wrong? There would, if that's done and those things are discussed with Bill, those things are emailed to Bill, he makes that correction, then there's going to be really no need other than saying we approve.
And we don't even have to do that. They're on the consent agenda. Unless somebody objects, they go right through. So take 30 seconds down to 5.
So, right, so any of the corrections, like when you've made them before, Barbara usually notes them on her copy,
Yeah.
signs them, and those are the ones that get filed.
I'm good
Yeah.
with making it easy, as long as it's not gonna end up being where we circle back around and we do this over and over again.
Right.
That's my whole
Right,
point. And
right.
sometimes when we talk about an A or an and, drives me up a wall. I mean, we're talking about something that's so damn obvious. Now we're gonna ask Bill to go back and change. That's what I don't want to see
Right,
happen
right.
in a circular manner. That's
So,
all I'm saying.
when I post
We do that
draft
now.
minutes on the website, and there's a disclaimer that says these are draft minutes.
Right.
Final
Yeah.
copies are on file in the clerk's office.
And that's how everyone does it.
Right. So I used to go back and that was a lot of work. So
I bet.
but now because we added a disclaimer, I don't have to go back and change the draft online. those is still the draft. If somebody says, oh, well, what changes, they can come in, read the changes
Gotcha.
here, and that's it.
I'm all for it if it makes your job easier and it makes it easier for us at the thing, as long as it's not gonna be something that there's this loophole that we're gonna go back and
Right.
make a unnecessary discussion out of an A or an AN.
Norm?
Jerry, I agree. But I also understand there may be an odd circumstance where we're gonna have to open the door to it again.
I get that. I get that totally, Norm. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that the thing that drives me crazy is there's such blatant, obvious typo things that are like, we're missing a comma. It's just a waste of breath. So that I don't want to circle back around and
Right.
talk about. If we're going to talk about content, I'm all for it. But I don't want to talk about typos. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So for example, Jerry, say that we're paying our lawyer, not that this has have come up, but it's a good example because we used to deal with this at schools. And in the minutes, it said, the board approved an amount to be expended up to $12,378. And somehow it was transposed to
Well,
$13,278.
it's content.
That's content. So those would have to be pulled from
I get it.
because somebody didn't catch, it wasn't a typo,
I get it.
but they didn't catch that the amount was actually wrong from what, and somebody who was there at the meeting took it down and said, whoops, I
I
didn't
get that.
catch.
That's
and so
content.
then
And
we-
I
right.
understand that completely.
Yep. And then we just have to say, you know what, that was the error and we want to correct.
But if that person said that same dollar amount said, we forgot the parenthesis at the end of the zeros, then that's the kind of stuff. that
Right, we don't need
seem
to deal
We
with,
don't
right.
need to talk about it.
Right.
We do it often,
That's a typo. That can be in any published work. I mean,
just like tonight. We're still talking about.
Yeah, and maybe we can move on, and think about this and then think about whether, we have time between meetings to get this information to Bill. And, you know, what kind of, probably we'll need some sort of schedule and deadline for that. Hey, Norm?
Yeah, and we can always try this for a year and see how well it does, and if it doesn't work, change it. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't merit all this discussion.
okay, next item is under section C, paragraph 7, last line,
How about six?
highlighted in yellow.
We had a change in 6.
Oh, sorry. Yep. I skipped over that. Paragraph 6, there is, in the second sentence, beginning of the second line, a member may not speak or make a motion without being recognized by the chair. That was, Norman picked up that he thought that was inadvertently omitted from our rules from last year.
Makes sense.
Make sense? Okay. That just maintains order. It's part of the order thing. Next, number 7, paragraph 7, last sentence, and substantially the last line. The roll call vote shall be reflected in the minutes with the vote of each member being noted.
That's a new line,
That's a new line.
and it's
So-
just about electronic. roll
Right.
call
Any
vote.
member of the body may request a roll call vote pursuant to 1 VSA. When one or more members attend a meeting electronically, a roll call vote is required. So, if it's not clear, we could ask for a roll call vote, but we rarely would have to do that. But on an electronic meeting like tonight, it would have to be instituted. The roll call vote shall be reflected in the minutes with the vote of each member being noted. All that says is how each member voted. Normally, they're all in the affirmative unless there's an abstention. And so I don't think we would have too much difficulty. There are some split votes, but I haven't I don't remember too many of those. Next, is everybody good with that?
Mhm.
Yep. Jerry, any comments? Howard?
Oh, I'm good. It's good.
Next one, paragraph 9, just change a will or something to a shall, or may to a shall. It's in the 4th word from the end, shall be readopted annually. Section D, paragraph 1. Each regular and special meeting, there was an S on the end and we just took that out in line 1. In the second sentence, second line, those who wish to be added to the meeting agenda or have an item included on the agenda. We came up with the idea that somebody might want to be on the agenda to be able to address the body. But they may not want an item for any type of action, but they also may want an item for action and they are not going to be present. So they just want to hear what the vote is. So if the item were to be added, either way, you have to check with the chair. So adding those last few lines, having an item included on the agenda. Doesn't matter whether they want to be on the agenda or the item. Questions, comments? Norman?
Yeah, what this does is, I think while we added this was, and again, we haven't been faced with it very often or if at all, but it preserves the order of the meeting and gives us warning of what's coming up. Absent this language, somebody could just come at the meeting, raise their hand early, ask something to be added. We say no, it starts a whatever. And this just kind of sets out the procedure to avoid those kind of rare but perhaps sticky situations.
Although it still preserves the opportunity from any member of the body to request that the chair add an agenda item at the beginning of the meeting as the first action of business before the agenda is accepted.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't.
Usually they just fit right into the public comment.
Right.
Section.
Okay, any objections? Great, we'll move that along then. Paragraph 2 under agendas, Bill made the change, third line down, towards the right side. Fifth and sixth word from the end, bulletin board on the outside of town hall. Okay, just for clarity. So in other words, 2 public bulletin boards inside, there'll be a posting, and then there'll be 1 outside so the people don't have to come into the building to see that.
You might want to pluralize boards, the 2 public bulletin boards inside town hall.
Yes. Good catch.
And then just instead of a comma, and the public bulletin board outside town hall.
Mm-hmm. Good.
The question that came up on that was whether that was on the outside of the building or somewhere else in town that is not a disclosed location. That's why we settled on the outside of town hall. And I think that was Bill's suggestion to make it. But we can do that. Take out the comma and make it and public bulletin board on the outside of town hall. I'll make the corrections, Bill, if that will help you.
Should it read and a public bulletin board on the outside?
It is just, it's always just one, right, Bill?
There's 1 outside, yes.
Or and the public, either one?
Yeah,
Okay.
Either one.
I'll put the in, yep. And the final thing on that paragraph is the last full line, the agenda shall, once again, we've put that in.
Was that a will or something?
I can't remember.
It doesn't matter. It's too. We could have caught that before. if it
We
was.
should have, but Norman and I caught a few of the shalls that we hadn't caught previously. But that's all. Paragraph 3. The first change is in the third line down. And we're recommending that we strike first act of business at the meeting at the meeting has commenced. That was unclear. And so we're looking to replace with once the agenda has been adopted.
Good one.
That's clearer and less cumbersome. Any other comments about that? Make sense? Great. The final suggestion on paragraph 3 is that it's in the last line, striking out by a majority vote of the body, and change that to of the voting body. by a majority of the voting body.
I don't know if for consistency, whether we keep saying majority of the vote or quorum or.
Yep.
I'm not sure what we're gonna end up with earlier, but
That may be, it may be 4, so I'll put a note that we need to revisit that as to whether it's actually 4 members.
That was what we were thinking when it said vote of the body that required 4 votes. But it's the same issue we've looked at in different contexts
Yeah.
throughout this discussion. We don't need to go over it, but when I saw that, I said, uh-oh, I said, we got to look at it again.
Yep. Because that may be 4, I mean, because otherwise, based on the conversation we were having earlier, that everything requires 4 members to vote in the affirmative.
Yeah,
So we just need to clarify that. Under section E, paragraph 1, last line, once again, we put in a shall for published schedule shall be made at a regular warned meeting, and we added subsequently properly noticed.
very good.
Bill's already doing that, but it just reflects the practice. Paragraph 3. The second line, we made a suggestion and making ending the sentence with and without 24 hours notice to members, period. And then say, rather taking out the word provided and just say some public notice thereof shall be given as soon as possible before such meeting. It doesn't link it to the other. It just says that you can do it without public notice to everybody within 24 hours, and some public notice will be given as soon as. That could be an hour, it could be 45 minutes. It really doesn't matter as long as you're following these rules. My understanding is that some rules for public bodies allow it to be posted within that the meeting has occurred within 24 hours after the meeting has taken place. So I think we're being a little bit more restrictive here than what state statute actually requires for an emergency meeting. But that's okay, as long as everybody's comfortable with that. Paragraph 4, what we did was we put in a reference. It's 4 lines down. We put in a parenthetical reference highlighted in yellow. See section C 7 or 8 if it's renumbered. It will probably be 8 or 9 if we put in another one under C that talks about a roll call vote. So rather than restating what the roll call requirements are, you can just reference back to that section.
Why do we have to duplicate that language? With C7 or 8?
What do you mean duplicate it?
Well, why do we have to say twice that, if some members are attending electronically and it's not a unanimous vote, it must be done by a roll call? Didn't we already
yeah,
cover that? 7 or 8? Or am I missing something?
that's it. Well, it's in C7, isn't it? Maybe, I think she's right.
Oh.
Let's look. I think she's right, Dana.
Well, actually, the C7 says that anybody at any time can require a roll call vote, which is simply under section C is the organization and how we do business and make motions and pass motions. In that context, any member can request that there be a roll call vote, and it is required if it's electronic. This is under meetings, and the section here is it doesn't matter whether it's a regular meeting, an emergency meeting, or a special meeting. So I think they're just reiterating the requirement regarding anybody attending electronically. I don't know.
Let's not waste time, but Dana, let's think about it. I'm leaning towards Barbara's view that it's redundant and we can do away with it, but let's look at it again.
Yep. Well, I mean, you're taking out one line and you're taking out the reference to the other paragraph, but
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't matter to me.
So let's just think it through when we have more time.
It also talks about the need for presence, a physical presence at a location where the public can attend. That's the following line. We didn't make any changes there.
Mhm.
That's statutory. That was suspended, I think during, COVID.
It's,
for a time.
it's still in place until January something.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's gonna get extended again. It got extended.
Right, okay. Section F, all meetings of the body are meetings open to the public. We decided that that whole line could be removed
Thank you.
because and it says members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunity to express opinions about matters considered by the body. So, I mean, that basically says the same thing as the first line. So we're taking that first line out. Any question about that?
First sentence out, not the first line.
First sentence. Yes, thank you. Okay, second paragraph. Making a recommendation that the end of that line that says, but before any action is taken by the public body at each meeting. I mean, the action can't be taken except at a meeting, so there's actually no reason to have at each meeting present there, and that can just come out. So Norman and I were recommending that we take that out. It's highlighted in yellow.
Take a look at that one. I mean, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense at the beginning of each agenda item, but before any action is taken, you're going to the public, which is not what we normally do. Sometimes we do, sometimes the public comes in with something, but not very often. It's usually something generated by the commission. And then you would open it up to, just take a look at that.
What that means to me is that if somebody wants to speak about a particular item, that they can do that before we vote on it. When that happens is, really up to
Yeah,
up to you.
I guess that's
Barbara.
okay. I mean, yeah,
It's the words at the beginning.
yeah.
That seems, so I'll circle that and we'll take a look at it.
So what's the recommendation? Remove it?
Yeah,
Just
it
take a look
doesn't,
at
it doesn't make sense. It's not consistent with what we do and how we've been doing it, and it doesn't seem to me to make sense to initiate it, so to speak. It's just nothing we followed. And we'll just take a look then, and when we have some time to review the sentence
Yeah,
with and without that language.
Yeah, you could start with before any action is taken by a public body.
Mhm.
There may be 2 minutes per person afforded for.
Yeah, why don't we just do that?
public comment.
I'd make a suggestion that we just remove the first clause.
Start the sentence with before.
Start here. Anybody disagree with that?
And it says there may be, so it's just still discretionary with the chair.
It also says that a majority vote can extend the time, so
Mhm.
that's fine. That's what we had agreed to last year.
Good catch, Barbara.
Number 5. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, that person taking out the gender pronouns, that person may not be recognized again until others take out the word first. It's redundant and unnecessary. Be given the opportunity to comment on that topic. Any objections? Okay. Paragraph 6, we're recommending, just for ease of readability, to take out a few words. It starts with the first sentence on second sentence on line 1. Neither members of the body nor members of the public, take out the word "the," shall delay or interrupt the proceedings, comma, the decorum of the meeting, comma, nor interrupt or disturb any member while speaking. We thought that flowed a little bit better than the language that was there. Unless there's any objection, we'll send it along to Bill. And paragraph 7. Last clause after the but may bypass any or all steps when the chair determines that deviation from the process is warranted. That allows us to avoid use of pronouns.
Knock on wood that this has happened everywhere else but here.
We've been looking at it. We looked at that. That was one of the things that Norman and I both had flagged for consistency.
Yeah, but this disorderly people showing up and
Oh,
with weapons and stuff like that.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the use of pronouns. No, okay, sorry. And then the last, if that's okay, we'll check that off. We just need to change the date. Bill will have to change that when we finally do it, but those will be reflected in whatever meeting we take action. Which, Bill, by the way, when you were out on your call, there was a suggestion that we annually adopt at the organizational meeting right after the first of the year. So whatever the first meeting is in January, that these would be adopted. If you could just get them to us a month or so ahead of time so that we can do this review again, then that would be great.
We have to get this
Then we'll
back.
do that. annually.
We have to
Yep.
get this back to him.
Right. And we have to get this back. So yeah, Norman, we got to meet again next week, I guess.
Tough.
Getting to become very good friends.
You know what, next week?
I'm not here very much,
I do.
Dana. We'll
All right.
see.
Well, you tell me what your schedule is and we'll figure something out. I know you told me you're going away to DC.
Yep.
Okay. That's all we have for tonight. Most of those things are pro forma. We'll send those to you, Bill. And then we'll just highlight the ones we're still talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And then we should be able to bring those back on the 8th or whatever the next. The 8th, 6th, 8th. Yeah, December 8th. And then hopefully we'll be able to vote on them. Okay.
Thank you. So are you prepared to segue into the subdivision regulations or?
Well, Norman,
What?
what was he gonna say?
What did you
Norm?
say? What?
Oh, were you planning, I was asking Dana if he was planning to do some work on the subdivision ordinance.
Now?
It's not mandatory.
I do have a suggestion, having spent a good bit of time going over these. I'm wondering if a more efficient way to do them is to create a small subcommittee that will look at them and then do the work in between meetings. We could actually warn it as a work session if we need to. And then go over that. We could be here at town hall. We could consult with Bill and try to get some of the information that we've talked about done so that we can get through the other components that we've flagged, particularly the red ones, more efficiently rather than trying to do it the way we have projected with, 15-20 minutes each meeting. I was thinking about that, particularly as we were going over this document regarding the rules of procedure, although I didn't expect that it would take us almost 45 minutes to get it done tonight. So in the interest of time, I think that
There hasn't been a committee working. It's just been yourself.
Norman and I,
Okay.
But we have-
on the
on the subcommittee,
subdivision?
yeah.
Okay.
well, I mean, the way it started out, it was Bill and I met. We went over a variety of things that just were questions. Then Norman had some feedback. Norman and I met. We gave those to Bill to include, but there are action items that need to take place. And it's not clear to me how we should move that forward. For example, I didn't reach out to Mary Beth last time. You were going to, I think, look up a an Act 250 regulation. You may have done that. If you're prepared to do that, then we could certainly talk about that. But what I was thinking is that there are enough of those things that cropped up at the last meeting that it's almost like having a subcommittee of 2 or 3 people work on those tasks so that they could be accomplished in a more efficient manner. Because it's not just what the preference of the committee is, so that we would come back then with recommendations and suggested language. That's the thought, that's the aha that I had after working with Norman on both the rules of procedure and the other items on the
Norm has something
Yep.
to say.
on the subdivision regs. Go ahead.
I think I would like a subcommittee on this. These subdivision regulations are one of the most frequent things we're called on to apply, interpret, whatever. And I think it would be better to have 3 of us bring a fresh set of eyes, Dana, to a committee meeting on the subdivision regulations. We've kind of beaten it to death.
Well, there are action items too that need to take place. I think we've identified what needs to happen.
Mhm.
I think we also need the time and the setting in which to actually get those done.
In
So
a
I'm,
in a
Norm,
subcommittee.
Yep.
who are the 3 that you're referring to, Norm? I'm sorry.
No, a third person.
Dana, you're,
The third person has to be appointed by the chair or a volunteer.
okay. Any volunteers?
I can talk to you guys about the Act 250 piece or permitting. I won't be at the next meeting on
the 8th.
December 8th. It's the dress rehearsal for the play.
Yep, that's okay.
Is it right? But
Well, if we're also doing a subcommittee, we can find a time that's convenient for us that's outside of the meeting. We just, if that's going to be a publicly warned meeting, we have to get it to you, Bill, right?
There's only 3 of us. It wouldn't be a public.
Yeah, since there's only 3, it's not a majority, it's not the quorum.
You're not making any vote, you're not doing any voting or anything like that.
Yeah.
So. Work groups are exempt from that.
They are.
Yeah, I don't.
I thought that we had to warn work group meetings.
The board does it. The
Because there's a
board
lot
warns
fewer of them.
committees Because it's more often than not, majority of the board members arrive. So it can be warned as a public meeting so they can vote if necessary. Like that's why they do that. So if it's a committee of 1, you don't need to warn it because there's no way they can take action. So.
There's a few of those. I was going to mention also that you don't have to wait, like if you want some opinions or some feedback from our town attorney, you don't have to wait till the end. We can feed him questions along the way.
Without us meeting?
Well, if something comes up during your meetings.
Okay.
And
Do we go through, Bill?
Try using the VLCT for ordinances because they have
Yep.
staff attorneys and we already pay for that. So.
Yeah,
it costs extra.
so, yeah,
Try-
so
Try that if we can.
No, absolutely.
go ahead and okay to go through you, Bill, for either one of
Yep.
those.
That sounds good. Okay.
And I'll try to attend as much as I can, but I cannot promise that I'll be a steady participant.
I definitely would help if somebody tells me when it is and I can make it. I'd love to help.
Okay, great.
So maybe have a kind of a
Yep.
open-ended.
I missed something here. We're gonna have more than 3 people at a subcommittee meeting on the subdivision regulation.
Probably not at any given time, but it's a possibility now.
I defer to Barbara if she decides to go.
I was gonna defer to you.
Which is,
Well, and I'd be happy to attend if I can, but I just don't know that I could, so I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
It just depends on when it is, and I mean, you guys, I think, could do things a little.
Maybe Danny, you could come up with some come up with a kind of a timetable or and
Yep.
and topics that might you know, to Act 250 or something Jerry would want
Or
to
just
have
even a
input on?
comment for me, not even Act 250, but if you come up with we're gonna try to get together here, then I could
Yep.
give you a yes or no.
What times work best for folks?
So I probably won't be able to meet for that meeting, but if you email with me, I can help answer specific questions. It's easier to fit in with,
Uh,
or a phone call.
When would it be best is that evening? Is it morning? What's the best time to get you questions and things?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Email anytime. Yeah.
And the only limitation to that would be if you email everyone,
Don't do that.
then it's a meeting. So,
Well-
but it's perfectly fine to go one by one, or just, you know, what's your expertise, or, you know, what are your suggestions on this?
And as
Or
far
would
as the
you look
timing,
into this?
goes for me, it would be ideally, you know, end of the workday type of thing, you know,
What time? Four.
four-ish would be, I'm sure I could work out.
So after 4.
Yeah, 4 or after, something to that. In fact,
Okay.
I would definitely try to be there.
Same for you, Barbara?
Wednesday generally doesn't work for me because I'm at Habitat all day. And if you,
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday doesn't work for me.
We'll do it on Friday. That's the only-
Sure.
you know,
Barbara,
Dana,
you were shaking. your head.
Dana, I've had a lot of input into this, and if I don't have to sit on the subcommittee, somebody
I
else.
think you should. though. I mean,
No, that's fine. We can avoid one day that we, Barbara, what you
Yeah.
were saying.
Oh, not evenings. I have enough evening meetings. So, I'm not going to be a very regular participant. I just have too much going on.
Okay, but if you were to attend, what would your parameters be?
Potentially work it into the workday.
So
potentially
before, what time?
before 4.
Before 4.
3.
4:15 is your-
That's what
The golden half hour.
I'll make something happen.
I'm not available.
Clear as mud?
Yep.
Okay, so that's everything on the subdivision ordinance this evening?
I think that's all we really have time for. Yep. I don't want to open up another question without a little bit more direction.
Yeah, and there's no rush on this. I mean,
I was just thinking that if we could be efficient by taking one topic up at a time.
Yeah.
I realized since the last meeting that it was going to be a little bit more complicated than that. So,
okay. So let's move down to announcements and news. Mary Beth, you usually have something for us.
So for the trail work, we're still kind of inching forward.
A Belmont or the bike trail?
So the bike trail is pretty well set. It's all permitted. That there's not really gonna be much going on with that at Northwood Park, except marking the route. And then construction in the spring. So then for the Belmont and just other trail projects, we're kind of backing away from Belmont just because it's so far in the future, and we're kind of switching gears to connecting different towns together. I think we've decided to kind of table the Mendon city watershed discussion with trails for now, just because we kind of hit a dead end, and we're kind of stepping back and looking at larger alternatives, because a bridge across Mendon Brook just doesn't look like it would be feasible, or
And
we're gonna look at all other alternatives before.
that bridge would be about where?
So the we requested from the city and DPW to use the city watershed property because that would get us right to Northwood Park from where the trail's ending up. And then they said no, but they proposed coming in from the north and building a bridge across Mendon Brook. But after Irene, that floodplain is just so wide, it would just need to be a gigantic, even just for a trail bridge, a huge bridge. And we looked at two different alternatives with different members of the state, wetland, river, floodplain people, and both of those two alternatives just aren't very
Feasible.
feasible, or at least we're going to try to see if there's any other option elsewhere before doing that. So we're kind of setting that aside for right now, but hopefully picking it up later on. But decided to start focusing on getting from Pine Hill Park to the western area and focusing on starting to work with groups and towns that are already working on trails and seeing how we can help. So like West Rutland, for example, is very supportive. Rutland Town, we met briefly, very supportive. So we're kind of switching gears and we're still planning to reach back out to the city and work with them, but focusing on the western area. So maybe the creek path or another area. So we're still kind of slowly inching along because we have some momentum and a group together, but switching gears a little. Yeah. So like, for example, we're trying to start working with between West Rutland and Proctor and Pittsford, just starting to make connections and pick up historical ideas that they have for trails and see how we can work together to move things forward.
We're working with the planning commissions of those towns,
Yeah, and town
managers.
yeah, there's a member on their planning commission that is interested in working with us, and yeah.
All right.
So no really news to share, but just kind of a general shift in approach.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
So that we're not spinning our wheels, so to speak.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Howard, I think you might fall under the announcements news category. You want to fill us in, fill the group in on your personal plans?
Okay, yeah, what I'm doing is, I've been working full-time as a lister in the office every day, and I'm going to end that on January 1st. I'm going to basically retire from working full-time. I'm still a lister for another year. My term isn't up until basically 2024. So I'm still a lister, still active as a lister, but I'm just not going to be working the full time that I have been in the past. But I'll still be around. We still have to get the grand list out and all the other good stuff that goes with it. So, but yeah, I just not going to be full time. That's about it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations, and hopefully we'll continue to see you at the planning commission meetings.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
I can't remember when your term is up here, but hopefully you'll extend that.
Yeah, I have no plans to change any of that. At least not now. I don't. No, just that I wanted to get away from the full time day to day activity.
You certainly earned it.
For
Been a while.
sure.
Thank you for
Working
your
on it for a
service.
couple of years to make this transition. And finally, it's time to do it. So,
You have enough help in the office to cover your additional tasks?
Yeah, we'll keep things going. You know, Marcia, she's in daily in the office, and Dean Davis is a lister, and we certainly will keep everything, get everything done as usual. You know, it's stuff we can even do offsite. I was home today on a sick day, and I took care of a couple of things and some phone calls that came through. It's not a big deal. We will keep it going. It's
Right.
all depends on, you know, we don't know what the select board has for plans. There's been talk in the past of maybe they ought to replace the listers with a full-time assessor and things like that. And they just don't know which way it's going to go. It's just really a matter of time to see what they come up with. They've got to keep this thing going. And what I've said is we'll stick in here to help, to keep it going. And hopefully they'll come up with a plan, whatever it's going to be. So it can transition
Yeah.
to whatever.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Howard.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
You'll love it.
Okay, maybe one more item of news, to mark your calendars. I don't know if it's on Bill's calendars yet. The townwide celebration of 2023 is August 26th. And I'm fairly certain we'll be asked to have a presence there again,
August 26th.
August 26th.
That's a Saturday, right?
Should be. Okay, let's figure out what we're going to do with the minutes tonight.
Motion to approve the minutes of October 6th.
Second.
Okay,
We should have had ample time to digest the minutes. I will say that I read them over and let Bill know 3 weeks ago that I didn't think we had any changes unless somebody else has something major that they would like to change. I would move that the chair move the question to accept those minutes.
okay. If there's no further discussion, I will abstain.
Perhaps I shouldn't have seconded that because I would have seen too. I was not here.
No, you were
We're there.
on the
Oh, I thought you were
6th.
talking about these, the 20.
No.
Oh, the
6th. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm back in.
you're back in.
Okay,
Anybody can make the second. You just you can't vote on it. Well, you can, I suppose.
okay, ready for a vote. Okay, all those in favor, October 6 minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Howard, were you there? You were
I
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you're supposed to sign this one.
Yep, I'll sign it.
And so now we also have the last meeting, October 27th.
Motion to approve those minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great.
Thanks, Mary Beth.
Any discussion? Okay, ready for the question? All those in favor, October 27th minutes as prepared by Bill.
I
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, anything else?
Since we're still following our procedure and two of us are voting electronically, I do believe the minutes should reflect that Howard and Norman voted in the affirmative to accept the minutes, while Jerry and Dana also voted in the affirmative in person, with two abstentions, Mary Beth and Barbara, on the minutes of October 6th. And for the minutes of October 27th, there were 5 members voting in the affirmative. That would be Howard and Norman. No, Norman, you weren't here last week, were you?
Yes.
Last time?
So
Okay,
Commission
sorry about that.
member-
Mary Beth, yep. And Barbara and I with Jerry abstaining.
Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion so moved.
Second, okay. We are adjourned.
Thanks.